Hey everybody, welcome back. In today's video, we'll be covering how to work with dates in R. So primarily, if you read in dates in from an Excel format or a CSV format, we'll likely read it in as a character string. And if it's a character string, then we can't treat it as a date. So one of the first things we have to do is just transform that into a date, and we'll use a handy function called the lubridate. Within the lubridate package to do that. So before we get started, we have to obviously read in our data set. And so I'm going to call this revenue because I have a really simple revenue data set that I'm going to use for this. And so I'm already in the working directory there. And the name of my file is called simple revenue. So if I read that in and I take a look at my revenue data set, we see we have a date column here and then a revenue column there. So if I do str of revenue and we look particularly at the date, we see that there's this character designation for the variable type of that date. We also have the character for revenue, but we're not going to worry too much about that right now. So now what we're going to do is the first step is we need to just transform this into a date object. And so to do this, we're going to need to load in a package called lubridate. So we do that with library and then lubridate. And so we read lubridate in. If you haven't installed lubridate, you can just do install.packages and then lubridate with quotation marks, and that will take care of that. And then you can run the library there. So I'm just going to start by adding this as a new column. So I'm going to call this new date so that we can track our old date and compare it to our new one. And all we're going to do is we're going to look at the structure of our date variable. So our date has the month and then the day and then the year. And so lubridate has a handy function called MDY, which stands for month, day, year, where we can pass our revenue date variable in. And so if we run that and then we take a look at our revenue file, we see that we now have our old date, which is just this character string, and then we have this new date variable, which is the new date actually transformed as a date. So if we look at the str of the revenue, we can see that now the character type there is actually a date variable. So on top of MDY, so we have this MDY function, and this will be for month, day, year format. And then we have a year, month, day format, which would be year, month, day, and this would just be YMD. And then we also have a day, month, year. So if you have day, month, year, then you can do day, month, year, just like that. And you would just pass your date variable inside of your data frame into one of these functions. And it really is that simple. So if these are dashes instead of slashes, it will still work just fine. It's really just a matter of having the correct structure of where you want different things to go. So the other thing that we can do now is, now that we have our new date variable, we can kind of extract different pieces of it. So like, let's say we wanted the month. Inside of lubridate, we have a month function. So we can do revenue. And if I do this on the new date and we take a quick look, we see now that we get this is for month 6. But then if I do revenue and we do like month, won't work. We'll do month, and we'll do this on our old date variable. And so this is part of the problem that we have, and why it's good to use the lubridate, one of these handy functions from lubridate here, to actually convert your date into a date format so that we have this handy group of functions here. So I'm going to comment that out because we don't need that. I'll actually just delete it. And we can do the same thing with day, and this would just be day, revenue, new date. And then we can do the same thing with year, and this would be year, revenue, revenue of our new date. And so if I run these two lines and we look at our revenue, we can see that we now have parsed out our date into the month, the day, and the year. So for example, we wanted to group our data set by the month and display results. Now we can very easily do that. Same thing for the day, same thing for the year. If we wanted to filter so that, you know, we only had dates that are the first week of the month, the first 7 days of the month, we can easily do that because it's very quick and easy to parse out the day variable. So one other thing I'm going to show is basically, you know, we can have this and we can have it all on separate lines where we kind of set this stuff up, but we can also put it together quite nicely inside of dplyr. So I'm just going to kind of give a brief introduction to doing something like that. So I'm going to call this new revenue. And what we're going to do is we're going to work off our revenue data set, and then we use this %greater than% sign, and this is called the pipe. And then what we're going to want to do is we want to mutate, and we want to create our date variable. So we're going to call this date is equal to, and it was month, day, year of our date variable inside of revenue. And then we can also mutate, and I'm just going to do year, and we'll just take the year of the date, and we can just do that. And then if we look at our new revenue, head new revenue, and we see we have date, revenue, new date, and then we, oh, hold on. I already had those variables. So let's do this. Let's summarize so that all we get from this is the year variable. And so we look head new revenue, and now all we have is the year variable actually coming through. So by putting everything inside of this dplyr chain, and we could put all of this code just as we did pretty much inside of a mutate call or inside of a summarize call, and that will help us get everything neat and tidy and very clearly just in one little chunk of code. So that is how we use lubridate to transform our character dates into actual date formats in R. I hope this was helpful, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.